And we're live streaming, so whenever you're ready.
All right, great. Let's call the meeting to order. Hello, Mr. Mayor and everybody. In particular, our guests from Charleston Water System. I see Mr. Rock with his headsets on, all officially over there.
Thank you.
Councilman Shaye, would you bring a few words?
I'll be honored to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Almighty Father, look kindly upon your servants this afternoon. Lead us and guide us. Help us to do the good will of the work of the city of Charleston. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Let's entertain a motion to approve the minutes for November 21 meeting.
So move.
Properly moved. And is there a second out there?
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any question on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. O'Brien, acceptance and dedication of rights of way.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Items 1 and 2 are acceptance of 2 permanent drainage easements or some drainage improvements that the Stormwater Department's doing. Matt, do you have anything you'd add about those, or they're pretty much basic, just easements, correct?
That's correct, Mr. O'Brien. Those are both drainage easements for a slight widening of the canal over in the Dowden Court area.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Do we have a motion for approval, Councilman Shaye?
I so move that we accept these right of ways for all 3 of these, particularly for the Dowden Court, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Fountain, for your persistence on getting this done.
All right, we have a second. Properly moved and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Temporary encroachments, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to go back to number 3. That's a different item, and Magley's gonna from legal is gonna just do a brief explanation of that one for us.
Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, let's go back to E3. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Good afternoon. This item is the request of an easement by the College of Charleston to tap into a city sewer line at the 99 West Edge building. Currently, they're storing their waste above ground because the line that they were using has failed. CWS, Mr. O'Brien, and Mr. Kronsberg have all reviewed the proposed easement and signed off on it. And I believe that we've got Jeff Webb with ADC here who's available to go over the proposed plan. If we need to do a screen share, we can do that as well.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Mr. Webb, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
No, that summarizes it pretty well. I could share just a Google Earth image to show where it is, if that would be helpful. Just give me 1 minute. Sorry about that.
Reaching out to you directly. I'm getting
Mayor, you're on. You
might want to mute yourself.
Hear you.
Are y'all able to see my screen?
I can.
Okay, real quick. like was described, the current sewer service or the previously working sewer service ran through this parcel to CWS's system on Horizon back here. There's been issues with the service line, and I think also CWS has an issue with this portion of their line. So this really solves kind of two problems there. The sewer that we want to tie into runs outside of 99 West Edge and then goes through this garage portion and ties to a CWS manhole here on Horizon, which is downstream of the problem area. So what we're proposing to do is put in a small grinder lift station to pump and then come across diagonally about 40, 50 feet of this parcel to tie in with a new manhole on that gravity line.
Okay, any questions from committee members? Listen, good luck with that project. Do we have a motion for approval?
So, Mr. Chairman, could I ask,
Yes,
do we
sir.
have a plat handy he could share with exactly where this easement is going? I mean, I saw the little cursor thing.
Yeah, I let me dig it up.
If you'd like, Jeff, I'm happy to share my screen. I've got it pulled up.
Yes, please. Thank you.
It might even be in my package here, I guess.
Is that displaying?
Yeah, I see it.
Yes. So the gray shaded is the proposed new easement.
Okay. And the current easement goes on both sides of the property line? Is that
So-
what those
so-
dotted lines mean?
There is a I think there's a 20-foot drainage easement running on the city side of that property line that this kind of overlaps there, you see.
Yeah.
And you can also see the existing SS line. That is the existing sewer service that we could not locate an easement for it. It runs across the Horizon House property that's also city owned. And so our original proposal was to replace that in the same general vicinity and get it cleaned up with an easement across the Horizon property. But I think the concern was that would encumber that property and what plans were for the future development of that parcel.
Right. So yeah, that quote Horizon House site property, I'm pretty sure West Edge plans to put that out for some kind of development bid. And then I wanted to share for the public record, for what it's worth, that we've been having some discussions about increasing connectivity between citizens that live in Gadsden Green and the west side and getting over to Brittlebank Park. And they can come alongside that parking garage further to the north of here and out by the Publix. But beyond that, there's no public sidewalk or right of way until you get all the way up to Fishburne Street. And we were hopeful to have some direct pedestrian easement access through the middle of the block in another location. And since you have this existing, I guess on the city property, we got the existing drainage easement, as you say, and then where your sewer line goes, since you couldn't build on all of that, I presume, long-term, or wouldn't want to, that perhaps this could be a good, walkway to get over to Lockwood and to Brittlebank. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you know of that would disallow that?
At least what's not showing up real well on this plat is the way that the parking is currently configured. If you recall, there's kind of like a one-way circulation through this that goes behind, behind the lower part of this building, then wraps out, and it's got angled parking spaces off of those, that the curb is very close to that property line. So at least on the college's parcel, that might be a challenge with its current configuration. But if you were saying that running through either the Horizon House or the 99 West Edge parcel, and then if it were to stay on that 20-foot easement, I have to look again at the aerial to see how close the surface parking on the city side is, if there is a gap there.
Okay.
I want to say that I think there's just a pretty narrow strip there, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So let me ask one more question. This new easement, and that's right where there's an exit from the parking garage, correct? People currently drive right over that?
Yes, sir. I believe that's open at this end here.
Yeah,
Pointing
and
at the screen.
so creating this easement, does that any way restrict that driveway movement long-term or legally? And would it restrict from building above the easement area if for whatever reason that building or portico got extended?
So the easement, I believe, would give the college rights to make repairs within the easement. I'm not exactly sure on how all that is codified. So, and as far as building over, I think there would be the ability to build over, but with those same provisions that you'd be able to have access to repair this line. The good news is this is a 2-inch, very shallow force main. So it's only going to be 2 to 3 feet. I mean, probably 3 to 4 feet in depth. So you don't need, very much clearance to access it and width to access it.
Only 2 inches?
Yes, because it's coming from a grinder, a type lift station.
Okay.
So you can just do the smaller diameter.
So can you go back to that other image?
Yes. So
as you can see, that's a paved area right there, right now. So you're telling me where this new easement would give them the right to do maintenance on within that area? They'd have to tear up the asphalt and repair it?
Yes,
And
sir.
If we ever built anything to extend back there, we'd have to honor the right for maintenance. And there was no other place y'all could do this, because it just seems like for future building and for the parking and driveway that that seems to be a long-term inconvenience to me.
Yes, sir. Like I was saying, the original thought was to find a place and come kind of through the open area, but in talking with Ms. Copeland and with Michael Mayer with 99 West Edge, they thought that, I think the general consensus was that would encumber that parcel to a worse extent, I guess, than this would.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mr. Webb, I kind of see what the mayor's talking about. Hypothetically, let's say the garage was extended over this surface parking lot one day. If you ever had to repair that line. Anyways.
Well, if I may be so bold to say it without having spoken to Chief Reynolds about this, at some point we got to replace our police station there at Lockwood. And honestly, other than going to another site, there's one logical place would be to build over this parking lot and then, do something with the old building once we build something new. I haven't talked to anybody, capital projects, or even the chief about it, but I just don't want to do a little small easement that would somehow get in the way of that thought. So I'm going to respectfully ask that we defer this and let me hunker down with legal and with Michael Maher and with the police department, and just kind of satisfy in my own mind that we don't need to reserve that space for a building one day.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I'm taking that as a motion on your part to defer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Second.
Any more discussion on that motion? I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. We need to look at maybe a plan B on this.
It may be fine. I apologize for not being aware of exactly where the easement was until now, but I just want to make sure we don't shoot ourselves in the foot here.
I agree with you on that. In the meantime, public still has a pretty good temporary solution, Mr. Webb.
I think they're kind of sick of their temporary solution. They'd like to get that tank out of there, but
We'll solve it one way or the other. We'll solve it one way or the other.
All we're talking about 2 weeks, basically. That's all we're talking about.
And one thing we can also, maybe there's a compromise or a kind of hybrid where we could maybe alter the alignment so that easement, instead of running like that 45-degree angle across there, that it maybe could hug the face of the building. You still would have to, you might still have to separate any future construction far enough that would work, but that might be an option too.
Yeah, that could be an option.
Okay.
Can you go back to the survey again? Can someone go back to the survey on that?
Yep. I'm pulling it up.
Okay, thanks.
You'll see it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, like if you got it towards the back corner and then made more of a right angle, even something like that might help. But why don't we get together shortly and talk about that?
Okay. Any more input from committee members? I'll call the question. All in favor of deferral, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Webb, and everybody who contributed to that.
Thank y'all.
Now, Mr. O'Brien, temporary improvement.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have 4 right angle signs, various locations downtown. All have received proper approvals from the zoning department, and we've inspected the locations and have approved those and offer them for information only to the committee.
Okay. All right. Mr. Bryan, you gonna do G1 environmental services update?
I'm gonna let Matt do that. Matt's online with us. I'm gonna let him do it.
Mr. Altop, you're up.
Good afternoon. So got some good news. Trash is running on time. We are picking everything up with city crews. We were going to flex with Trident, but they've had some staffing issues themselves here lately, so they haven't been able to staff up their trash truck. But we have been taking care of everything ourselves on the day it's supposed to be taken care of. Last Friday, we even had people come in and haul out of our debris site to try to get that wrapped up. That should be wrapped up here in the next week or so. So everything should be cleaned up and out of here by the end of next week.
Great
Garbage is
work,
on time and street sweeping is on time. So we've made big improvements over the last few weeks.
And congratulations, Mr. Altop and Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Fountain, everybody involved. I mean, that's been a lot of hard work getting there, and you've got it, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
H1 stormwater update, Savannah Highway sidewalk, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is one of the small project allocations for improving the drainage along the Savannah Highway sidewalk. This is on the south side of Savannah Highway between Campbell and Nicholson. Sort of where if you're used to driving through that area, it's where the sidewalk and the property sit much lower than the road. Basically, the water from the road drains down into that area and gets trapped. So we're looking at adding some under drains, kind of reworking the stabilization. But this is to recommend approval of a construction contract with First Construction Management, who is the low bidder on this project, for $86,600 to construct those improvements. We also are just establishing a $100,000 project budget, authorizing staff to make amendments less than $40,000 to the extent we have funds within that $100,000 budget. So we do occasionally have some very small change orders that have had to come back through council and create kind of a challenge. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to address this.
Makes sense to me. You have a motion out there?
So move.
Second.
Probably moving seconded. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it. H2 Ferguson Village, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this one is basically approving a memorandum of understanding with the Charleston Museum. So the Charleston Museum owns a piece of property in James Island, right next to Ferguson Village, where basically the drainage from Riverland Drive and from Ferguson Village kind of drains down through that privately owned property. We've been talking with the museum about maintenance of those drainage systems, because as you would see with any kind of old, mostly agricultural style drainage system, they become clogged over time. You have trees that fall down in the ditches. The museum has offered to basically at their own expense maintain that ditch system in perpetuity, basically so that the city doesn't need to come into the property and do work on that property, which they use as like a wildlife sanctuary, and they do some events on that property. So this is asking if council would support that, and we'll have the museum board support it as well, presuming we have council approval on this concept.
Okay, do we by chance have a drawing on that?
I can certainly pull one up very quickly for you, Mr. Chairman. 1 second.
Just want to make sure we don't have a parking garage we want to extend over.
This one is not our property, so it's a little more straightforward.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I have the
Serious Conservation District.
Right.
Yeah, I have the document right here. All right, let me share my screen. So this document shows Riverland Drive running north-south. If you're familiar with the area, kind of the Bishop Gadsden complex would be just to the right off the screen. Ferguson Village sort of sits down kind of behind Stono River and Henderson Road here.
Right.
Right. And basically what happens is the water comes out of these ditches that are shown in red, drains across this 24-inch pipe under Riverland Drive and into what you can kind of see as this old agricultural ditch system on the property. There is an existing power line right of way through the property as well, but basically the museum is agreeing to clean this red, it's like a red ditch, which is you're seeing the topo is what's being shown there, the elevation. So that red highlight is the low area where the ditch is. It's shown with these black hatched. So it's just kind of a current forested wildlife sanctuary site that they've agreed to basically come in, and they've already done one round of cleaning for us while we contemplate this, but Ferguson Village experiences some pretty significant flooding during heavy rain events. We've been looking for ways to help. We've worked with DOT to clean this 24-inch pipe, working with the museum to keep this drainage clean. And then the next step is going through and surveying the ditches within Ferguson Village to try to help obtain easement and take those into our maintenance system, which we've been working with the neighborhood association out there about that.
Okay, sounds good to me. We entertain a motion on this one?
So move.
Second.
I'll be moving second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to publicly thank Carl Borick and the Charleston Museum for taking this on. Normally we get an easement and then we're responsible for the maintenance, but due to the nature of the preserve, they wanted to be responsible, and so they're assuming some responsibility that most citizens or property owners would not. And so anyway, we're thankful to them for being part of the solution.
I have to agree with you on that. How big a tract do they have out there?
Oh, it's huge. It's hundreds of acres, I think.
Really? Wow.
Isn't it, Matt? Something like that?
I could check quickly. It is a large piece of property, Mayor. I'm not sure. It's at least tens of acres. I don't know if it
At least
gets
tens of acres. Yeah, it might not be.
It's a large piece of property. It's the Dill property, I think, is what they refer to.
The old Dill tract. Okay. Yeah,
That's right.
Okay, listen. All right, call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All That's the moment we were waiting on. Item 3, Mr. Rock, you and your team take it from here. Update on CWS utility fee collections.
Okay, is it okay if I share my screen?
Of course, yeah.
Does everybody see that?
Not yet. We do now.
Oh,
At least
okay.
I do.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. What we want to talk about a little bit is our storm drain billing
Wait a minute,
process.
Mr. Rob, for members of the council who are fairly new, can you explain your role with CW?
Oh, certainly. My name is Wesley Ropp. I'm with Charleston Water System. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and we've been working with the City of Charleston. Well, we work on a lot of things, but on this particular issue since the mid-1990s, and we do all the residential and commercial and industrial billing for the City of Charleston for their stormwater program. And as a routine, you probably don't know much about this because it's worked pretty seamlessly. I think we work well with your accounting department, and over 25 years now, I think it's been pretty smooth. But as we start digging into it and looking at some of the things going on, there are some things that we saw that would be helpful for the city to look at, and it would be some really good process improvements and some ways to improve your collection of delinquent accounts. So it could increase the revenues to the city by really just changing how you go about doing the billing. And some of the other municipalities in the area, like the city of North Charleston, uses the Charleston County's tax bill as to how to collect that. So anyway, I had just a few slides I was going to walk you through on this. And any questions before I start?
No, that's right.
Can y'all hear me?
Good to go.
Yeah,
we can hear
okay,
you.
good, go.
All right, great. Okay. Okay, so first, how does the current stormwater billing system work with Charleston Water System as a partner? And I just got a few bullet items on here to kind of describe it. So we add our stormwater charges to the Charleston Water System bills, and those go to all the residents in the city of Charleston. And the city is responsible for periodically updating the stormwater ERUs. These are on the customer accounts. So your staff works with our staff on that. And then we bill monthly. So we bill these and then we collect the payments and we remit to the city of Charleston on a monthly basis. And approximately $12 million a year is what we get for the city via our billing system. And one of the things that we do that we added since we started is unpaid delinquent stormwater charges are forwarded to the Municipal Association of South Carolina. They have a debt set-off program, and they match up accounts with the Social Security numbers we have on our account, and if they're getting a refund, then they deduct that from the our customers' refund, and we remit those payments to the city. It looks like, in looking at the past few years, we're getting anywhere between $100,000 to $170,000 forwarded from us to the municipal association, and on average, they're collecting about $20,000 a year. So it has to be a perfect match on the Social Security numbers, and it really only works for individuals, so for what we call residential accounts. But other than that, all other delinquent unpaid stormwater charges remain uncollected. We don't turn off a water bill for non-payment of stormwater charges. And as of October the 22nd, we had just a little over $1.2 million that were outstanding. So that's how it's working right now. And so now we'll talk a little bit about the limitations with the billing system process. And so I just mentioned that we do not turn off uncollected stormwater accounts. We only do things that are related to our water account to turn off. And this is kind of a big one on the second one. So the billings that we do are billed to very often the tenant for rental properties and not always the property owners. There are a few property owners that even though they have rental, they like it in their name, but most of them have it in the tenant's name. And so if you think about like the College of Charleston students and Medical University that they on rental accounts, so you're going to probably see about 10% lower with the turnover than if the billings were going out every month to the homeowners. And then the fourth item we have here is inactive water accounts are not billed stormwater charges. So if we don't have a water bill going out, it's not added. And then most properties in the city of Charleston without a Charleston water system account are not billed for stormwater charges. So there's some things that are getting missing when it's just a vacant parcel without a water account.
Mr. Rock, I know it fluctuates, but inactive water accounts are just vacant properties.
No, it can be if you have a rental and it doesn't rent for 3 months, then you wouldn't,
right.
It would be turned off. So the tenant would do what we call a final account so that the billing would stop then. And so it will start back again when the new tenant moves into the property.
Okay.
There are some properties like Castlewood where they decided to keep them themselves. They've got like 700 or 800 accounts. So that would be a case where that's not true. So I've hedged a little bit on saying 100% because there are some cases where the property owner has tenants and they decided to keep it in their name.
Okay.
Okay, and so we're just kind of tossing around some ideas about how we can move forward with things that would be beneficial to the city of Charleston to help improve your revenue stream. So one of the things that we see, and this has been done by other municipalities in our area, North Charleston, Mount Pleasant, and they add it to Charleston County's tax bill. And one of the big reasons they do that is it allows for use of liens for collection of past due balances. So right now, as somebody doesn't pay, it just accumulates, and that's why you see that large number we saw earlier on the outstanding accounts receivable. And the other thing is it minimizes past due balances. It improves collections efficiencies. You're working with the property owner rather than the tenants, so we don't have to chase those down. And then the third thing here is allows the city to begin billing for impervious properties that do not have a water account. So that's going to expand your revenue base. And we went through and we matched our records against the county's property records, and we identified approximately 1,300 properties within the city of Charleston which have no active water account. And we just used your current ERU charges, and we estimated about $600,000 more a year in additional revenue. Now, Mayor Tecklenburg has sent me a report from a group y'all are using called Woolport, and they had done the same analysis, but they also are looking at maybe adding something like a water quality multiplier. So they're doing more than just this, and they're getting an estimated increase of $5 to $6 million a year. So there's a lot of potential increases by making some changes in that, and also looking at your rate as they're looking at.
Just pause right there, Rob, and I'll tell you, committee members, when we raised, Mr. Fountain, when we raised the stormwater fee $1, what does that bring in per year? Something like additional 1.1 million?
That's about right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so if we raise the fee on everybody, $1.1, I mean, $1 from 10 to 11 or from 11 to 12, we raise about another 1.1 million. But if we increase, now I'm back to you, Mr. Rupp. I know these are estimates, but if we increase efficiencies and just collect from the people who's supposed to be paying and from some of the vacant properties that aren't being billed, what was the number you quoted?
We estimated about 600,000 or more per year in additional revenue by switching over to Charleston County's tax bill. Really, I think it wouldn't be a hard change. That I know that North Charleston, the city of North Charleston many years ago had come to us about doing it, and they decided to go with the Charleston County tax bill. And I think that's worked out well for them, and it seemed to be pretty seamless. So it's just adding a charge to
Okay.
something they're already doing. So just a thought.
No, I follow you completely. Any, let me not interrupt you any further. So, please
Anybody have
continue.
any questions so far?
Yeah, I think the mayor and I had our hands up.
Well, I'm sorry. Let me get back to the screen so I can
okay.
see people.
I'm sorry.
I gotta get back to seeing everybody. Okay, I'm gonna call on the mayor and then followed by Councilman Shade.
You muted, Mayor.
I think Councilmember Shade had his hand up first for the record.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Well, this is not maybe a question for Wesley, but for ourselves. Even if we make the switch over to the county tax bill, could we not go ahead and bill the 1,300 properties for the stormwater fee? I guess we'd have to generate an invoice ourselves directly from the city to those property owners, but would that be possible?
So Mayor, yeah, that is something we can certainly consider. We'd have to evaluate how we charge, and then as Mr. Rob got into what our mechanisms would be for non-payment. But we certainly could. That's part of what we've, I think, recommended at the budget ad hoc process, is kind of reworking our own stormwater billing system, which would give us some flexibility either to expand how we bill or to shift to a tax bill or to take different approaches.
Right. So even if it, if we make the switch and it's a year in arrears, you got these 1,300 properties. It seems to me if we could figure out a way to do it, go ahead and bill them for 22 and for 23 prior to the switchover occurring. That might be $1.2 million right there.
That's a great
Well,
idea.
let me see if I get this right. The 1,300 properties I'm thinking that's in addition to the 600,000. Am I?
No,
what about the
saying,
vacant properties? In other words,
Well,
we got vacant properties in the city that the CWS isn't billing at all on because they don't have a water meter, for example.
Right. The 600,000 was what we were estimating with the 1,300. Now, I'd mentioned earlier the 1.2. That's separate. That'd be a one-time shot in the arm,
Right.
and that was the past due. But these are just going to be. It's kind of the hole in the Swiss cheese is the properties that do not have a water account
right.
that would pick up
Right.
600,000.
Well, thank you. I
Gotcha.
think we should explore that. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Councilman Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're all zooming in on the 1,300 properties, and the impervious properties don't have a water account. How did that happen? What was the mechanism in which neither one of these categories have accounts?
I can plead guilty to some. I own some undeveloped lots that were never built upon. And so they don't have a water meter on them. I pay property taxes, but I don't pay a stormwater fee.
So if there's not a water meter associated with undeveloped property, then they don't get a bill.
Right.
And so what's kind of, and I don't hate to use the word misleading, but when you think of these 1,300 parcels, he's not giving us the size of these parcels. If these are half an acre, 10-acre lots, and the charge on the invoice for that property may vary in different amounts, I would presume. So the amount of money up to $600,000 may be somewhat skewed. It could be a lot higher than $600,000.
That's what I think.
I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah,
I'll use
is.
myself as an example. I don't want y'all to come running looking for me.
Oh, I should advise you to remain silent, Councilman Waring.
I think I might take that advice. But I bet we probably have somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 15 or more vacant properties that I get landfill bills on, and property tax bills on. But I don't get any stormwater because I never had a water, and we never had a building on it. So they've yet to be built upon. But if that street floods or that ditch is stopped up, I want our people to come out and clean.
Absolutely.
I'm not alone in it.
So I like Wesley's definition of Swiss cheese. Gives us a good analogy of that. So
Very good.
we've got a pretty good system for collecting fees, just not a perfect system for collecting fees because you've got holes in the cheese out there. This is something that we can remedy rather quickly, sounds like to me.
Well, there's a problem in that we get our monies monthly. So we're used to being fed monthly, and you're going to go from that to being once a year, obviously. So you've got to bridge financially, and that's the city has to figure that out. But how do we stop collecting? When we stop collecting monthly, there's going to be a time lag between the last monthly check in December, for example, and then getting the monies, on the property tax bill. Mr. Fountain, maybe I didn't explain that correctly. You want to touch base on that?
That's a very good point, Mr. Chairman. I think you did a good job explaining it, that basically no matter when we stop collecting, whenever we hit the first year that we will, if we did shift over to a tax bill, since the tax bill is collected at the end of the year in arrears, you would have basically that entire calendar cycle, 12 months with no revenue. And then you'd receive all of your revenue at the end of that. Well, and again, Ms. Wharton could explain better on when we receive tax revenue, but it starts coming in January, I think, and then it'll keep trickling in with some corrections based on estimates until February or March.
Right.
But it is about a 12-month period where you wouldn't have that revenue while you wait to shift over basically to collection and arrears. It's like when you start your first job and you don't get paid for 3 weeks, you got to find your way to make it through those first 3 weeks.
That's right. But I'm convinced we'll find it. Okay,
I don't
Mr.
mind the lag time, Councilmember Waring. It's just we got to get them into the system.
I agree.
Build. I mean, we can catch up later, but we can't start catching up until we get them into the system.
Right. I agree. Mr. Rupp, I kept cutting across you. You have any input or additional?
I think that our 600,000 number is probably low. We didn't want to estimate on this, so we probably went on the low end of that. So there's probably a lot more money there when you start really analyzing it, and we don't have the expertise on determining how much to do your ERU. So yeah, I think you'll find it actually higher than what we got in here.
All right, let me ask you this. I know you got this calculating mind. If you had, and I know interest rates have bumped up, but for every 100,000 of renewable revenue, how much money can you bond? Let's say if you had $500,000 of renewable revenue and you bonded that out, what size drainage bond potentially you can come up with?
Well, we just ourselves right now, we're about $7 for every dollar of revenue we have in debt. So you know, we're an enterprise fund. It might be calculated a little differently for a municipality, but we're about $1 to $6 to $7 in terms of what we have in debt versus annual revenue.
So if you had $500,000 worth of revenue and you want to bond that out, what size bond could you get?
Well, it would be, I would say, well, let's say 5 times that.
Okay. So about 25 million, maybe 30.
Right.
Gotcha. If the income is more than that and you did it conservatively, then we can get a larger bond.
Right. Now, I will say the Wolpert study you had, they estimated 5 to 6 million a year. And if you're getting 12 million a year currently in revenue, and they looked at these properties, so they have a lot, and they've looked at it for about 6 months. So they have a lot more analytical work done than we've done.
Got you.
And so that would be about a 50% increase in your revenue if they're outright, which I think they are. That's a lot of money, and you could actually, for your 1 year shortfall, you could make it up in 2 years if they're right.
I agree. So I
So-
think you get a note or something like that and just temporarily bridge it. Yeah. You get a
Get your
note.
1-year loan and then,
That's right. That's all we
Yeah.
need. See, Mr. Mayor, that's what I was talking about. And somehow my volume went out on our last meeting last week and you all couldn't hear me, but I was thinking that the temporary bridge would just be a 1-year note, at most a 2-year note. And as we get the additional revenues in, pay the note back.
yeah,
Right. Well, some of it could be covered with just cash flow because we
I
don't
agree.
spend
I
all the
agree.
money all at once anyway as we receive it. So we need some thoughtful analysis to go into that.
That's right.
Yeah.
The good thing about it, though, we got some good possibilities ahead. Number one, I want to thank, well, go ahead, Mr. Roth. You finish.
okay. The other thing I wanted to really mention is really the second bullet. I know everybody's in a hurry, but we've got to change out our customer service system, and that's coming sooner than later. And so the cost is very expensive, and so it would require a lot of the city staff time to help define the software and review proposals and do testing and implement it. So it's going to be a lot different than adding a charge to bill, and so they'd have to have city staffers available to help define it and implement it. And we just did our ERP system, and they're not. It's pretty hard to. That's something to think about as well. So that'll be here in the next couple of years. And something I mentioned on the third bullet item is just benchmarking in local areas. A lot of local governments around this Tri-County area have gone with their tax bill as well. And then it would increase the city's stormwater revenue per acre and per capita. And then the top bullet item that gives the city control over the entire billing and payment collection cycle. And I think that's important to kind of close the gap on those past due balances. So anyway, I just kind of close it so that I think the change of billing will increase the city's revenues. Along with Wilpert's changes on, they've got like a water quality multiplier, so they're doing more than just looking at past due balances. And then the Charleston County tax bill may be a nice way to make that transition that's already out there, and it'll just be a matter of them adding a charges versus what we're looking ahead about having to implement a brand new customer service information system. And then the city will be a leader then in best stormwater billing and collection practices, particularly the ones the Swiss cheese are kind of slipping through the cracks. So anyway, any questions? And I appreciate your time.
Any questions from committee members? I saw the mayor's hand and then Councilman Shade in that order.
Wesley or Matt, could y'all give me us a little description of what you described there, Wesley, the water quality multiplier?
I better defer to Matt.
I can, Mayor. So when Wilpert did their initial look at kind of our utility billing with some other options and some comparison cities, one of the options out there when you're doing billing, when you're establishing a fee, is to choose a rate or a fee based on impervious area, which is what we do now, right? Where basically how much stormwater are you contributing into the system. But some entities will do a water quality multiplier where they will change that fee based on basically how clean the water that they're discharging is, so that some, the origins of a lot of stormwater controls are from water quality through the federal level. So if you're on a site that has like a higher level of contamination based on like a typical site usage, you'd pay a different fee than someone in a typical, less polluted site. And pollution in South Carolina, most of the time for stormwater is sediment. Sediment is the biggest polluter in South Carolina, but we have some fertilizer and things as well.
So that could be dependent on, say, the use of the property, like if they were an industrial property or had some kind of environmental thing happening there versus a garden?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councilman Shade?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to thank Wesley, and I appreciate the collaboration that we've had. Councilman Moore, you were with me Thursday at my constituent meeting, and we had some wonderful representatives from Charleston Water Systems up here, and just the level of collaboration with that agency is wonderful. We worked hand in hand together. I just wanted to give them a big shout out and say thank you, Wesley, for reporting to us and giving us these ideas and suggestions. And just sort of to keep things in perspective, Councilmember Waring, that you know, the amount of money that we're talking about here in uncollected debt, it doesn't equal to, but it's pretty close to a 1 mil increase to our overall budget. That's just sort of I'm using that as a measuring stick more so than anything else. So that just sort of gives you an idea of the level of how uncollected revenue that we're missing out on with these properties and uncollected fees. So it's something certainly worth pursuing, and it's something certainly we need to be closing and getting rid of the Swiss cheese and getting into maybe just a good old provolone or American cheese format here on out. But I think we've got something to work with as a springboard to close this gap, and I appreciate y'all's work on this. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more, Councilman, in that these additional revenues, we're not talking about a tax increase or a fee increase. We're talking about just being more efficient in our collection. So prayerfully, and by the way, Mr. Fountain, the Wool Book report, is there any way we can get copies of that? I'm sure they'd like to present it, but I'd certainly like to look over it prior to the presentation if possible.
No, I can certainly provide copies out to the committee, Mr. Chairman. And just one very quick note. I mean, I think Councilman Shade is correct that the uncollected revenue is substantial. However, that is the cumulative uncollected revenue, not like an annual expectation of uncollected revenue.
Right. I see the mayor's hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, two questions. One was related to Matt's comment. Do we know how much the annual uncollected fee is as opposed to the accumulated? I don't know how often y'all just totally write it off, or we do.
If we're talking about the annual uncollected for the 1,300 properties, we'd estimate 600,000.
No, for the uncollected payments for what's actually been charged.
I would have to. The change from year to year, I'll have to look that up. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. So
I think it's been consistently around 1.2 million. You know, most people pay it, and they're probably a group just realize that there's no turn off for not paying, and so they're probably a lot of the same people, I would imagine.
Yeah. We have a lot of people that are paying you the water bill, but not paying the stormwater fee.
That's correct, because we don't turn off for non-payment of stormwater.
Gotcha.
So some people have a way of figuring it out sometimes that kind of tests the system.
So this is more observation than a question, but it occurs to me with this discussion that there is some bureaucracy to maintaining all this information, the ERUs per property, if we got into that water quality billing, you'd have to make some judgment about each property as to what the multiplier would be. So it would require some staff. I just want to put it out there that if we go down this road, we see some potential savings, but we'd have to staff up probably a little bit in order to even keep our information current and accurate to do the billing in this fashion. Is that right, Matt?
That's correct, Mayor. We currently do pay a fee to CWS for the billing collections and for bad debt collection, which we obviously would not pay if we went that route, but we would need to have the tax accounts for both Charleston County and of course Berkeley County, and then also the entities that don't currently receive tax bills have to be billed directly by the city, I believe, is the normal procedure. So that's a not insignificant number of tax exempt properties as well.
Mhm.
It does take some in-house accounting work to do that, which is something that currently CWS is performing for us, but we would have to shift that inside.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in return for that fee not being paid, of course. So it's a bit of a trade-off.
So Matt, you put aside some money in next year's budget for somebody to help us really drill down on all those kinds of details and figure all that out, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. So it's figuring out the details as well as seeing what in more detail what money we may be leaving on the table from a variety of different things, whether it's the sites without utility accounts, whether it's reassessing and re-auditing our existing accounts, and whether we want to see any modifications or changes to how we do our billing. So it's kind of a whole reworking of the actual billing package for the utility, whoever were to do that billing.
All right.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, you came up with something in discussion, I don't know, 20 minutes back, 15, 20 minutes back, where you said about, sending a billing out for this year for those vacant properties and billing out for 23. That's a pretty good move, which could help offset some of these, I help offset staffing up to improve the collection system.
I think we could maybe at least recover the costs of putting the system in place this year and next year.
Which would be a huge win, Well, Wes, I got to tell you, I really appreciate you and your team putting the information together in a, discernible, understandable manner. So, it's not like you guys got a lot to do over there, but I really and truly appreciate. I know you all been living this right along with us. So,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for having me. And the city's a partner with us, and we wouldn't be here without the city. So, thank you guys very much for having us.
We're all in this together. Just by the way, that CIS system that you are looking at changing over to, have y'all gotten any prices or estimate on what's that going to cost?
I'm kind of scared to say it, but best number is probably a low of 4, and the highest number I'm hearing is 32 million. So it's very expensive for mid to large size water and electric utilities to come out with a new CIS system. It takes several years to implement, and that kind of what Matt's describing about looking at a system, but that it would require a lot of city staff time on that as well. The system that we're coming off with, I didn't say this, but it was all written in-house, and so nobody really does that anymore. So we're having to go out and buy a package system, and so that's where I'm saying we would need the city's help to, if they didn't change it, we'd have to have y'all's involvement on that as well, and that would require a lot of staff time too.
So what about money?
Oh, money, yeah, we would whatever. We would have to figure out what that costs. Like I said, we just have some general estimates. I don't know what part of that would be stormwater, but it would be a separate system that would have to be put in within that.
So there's a cost to be borne either way.
That's right. It'd be like
if we do
water.
nothing, there's going to be a cost.
Yeah, that's
if we
correct.
do something, there's going to be a cost. Listen, this has been great.
We've got 2 people left that know how to program our system, so we've got to change it out. So
well, make sure you keep them on life support until.
Yeah. Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you very much. Y'all have any questions? Just give me a holler if you have any questions. Okay.
Well done.
Thank you, sir. All right. Can we push this out to all members of council? This report this PowerPoint that you have.
You're welcome to.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any final questions from committee members? That's the end of the agenda, by the way. Beyond that, by acclamation, we stand adjourned.